Hi, TC First. Today, I want to talk to you about fear and anxiety. I know this is a topic that we have covered before, but recently I've been dealing with it on a very, very personal level, and it's been pretty crippling. And I thought that maybe sharing a little bit of my story and what I've been going through might help encourage some of you. As you may or may not know, 2 weeks ago, I gave birth to my beautiful little baby girl, Miss Lydia. And although she is the biggest blessing of my life, and I am absolutely in love with her, it's been a very bittersweet last couple of weeks. So my pregnancy was completely normal. Everything went totally fine. I'm 28 years old, and pretty average, pretty healthy. I wouldn't say that I'm like the peak of health, but definitely I didn't have anything in my medical background or history that would say that I would have a high-risk pregnancy. Until about week 28, 29, everything was going great. And then all of a sudden, I started noticing a lot of swelling, which was to be expected in your third trimester of pregnancy. But compounded with just overall feeling really cruddy. And I'd have tightness in my chest. I was having a hard time with mental fog and confusion. And I just wasn't feeling my best. And I knew something was off, but I kept chalking it up to being in my third trimester. And, babies just make you feel weird. Well, one night, several weeks ago, I was feeling extra terrible, and I was looking at my symptoms, and everything was pointing to high blood pressure. And of course, when you have high blood pressure while you're pregnant that you don't have before, that is part of preeclampsia. And so, which puts you at a seizure risk. And I realized that this could be a lot more serious than I originally was thinking it was. So my husband went and bought a blood pressure cuff, and we found out that, yes, I had high blood pressure. It was at the time ranging from anywhere from 140 over 80 to, at the worst at this point, 160 over 90. And we realized, okay, I needed to go to the hospital because I was at risk for a seizure. So we go to the hospital. And I'm admitted for 3 or 4 days, I can't remember. And during that stay, they took my blood multiple times and monitored my blood pressure. And yes, they diagnosed me with preeclampsia. Now, preeclampsia is not the worst thing in the world. Everything was fine. They were planning on just monitoring me very closely for the duration of my pregnancy. And they said that she might have to be taken a smidge early. Like, they couldn't wait necessarily to the full 40 weeks, but that she'd probably have to be taken or induced at like 37 weeks when she's full term, but just not go the whole way. Well, I went home for a week and everything seemed to be okay. And in fact, I had a baby shower, and I was able to take my maternity photos, and I was feeling okay about the situation. I was still really nervous, and anxiety was building about the whole, her coming early, possibility of her coming early. And it was stressing me out a little bit. I'm not going to lie, because that's not what I planned. But ultimately, I was like, okay, it's okay. If she comes a few weeks early, it's not a big deal. Well, things took a turn for the worse. At 31 weeks and 5 days, so this was the Saturday before I had my baby, I was cleaning the house, I was trying to get her room ready, and everything was going good, and then I wasn't really feeling great. I had been having contractions for a few days, but that's normal. Braxton Hicks happen. It's not a big deal. So I wasn't feeling great. I was very exhausted, and I was feeling those same symptoms of chest tightness and mental fog. And so we were checking my blood pressure as we had been, and it was higher than it had ever been before. It got up to 190 over 102, and my husband immediately was like, no, we need to go back to labor and delivery, like right now. I didn't want to. I was terrified. I had, at this point, realized how serious everything was. and it was scaring me. It was so scary that instead of confronting it and being like, no, we need to go to the hospital and take care of it, I immediately went to, let's not go to the hospital. Let's just wait as long as possible, because if I go to the hospital, then that means that I'm not going to leave the hospital. I had it in my head that I was possibly, going to die, or that she might die. And part of me thought, for some weird reason, that just avoiding the situation, avoiding taking care of the situation, meant that it wasn't going to happen, which is completely irrational. And thank God that my husband was there to be the voice of reason and force me to go to the hospital, because I was immediately admitted and I was induced the next day. Well, when they were taking my blood and checking out how everything was going, they realized that I didn't just have preeclampsia, I had HELLP syndrome, which you can look that up. It's HELLP syndrome, and basically it is a complicated version of preeclampsia, and it means that you are at severe risk for bleeding out, seizure, among other things. And when I realized how bad that was, my somewhat irrational fear of me dying or the baby not making it got even worse. So throughout the day and a half before my C-section, I had these thoughts that I just couldn't let go. And they kept getting worse. And they kept getting worse. And I was praying. For several weeks, all about this pregnancy, is praying that she'd be safe, praying that I'd be safe, praying that, we'd both make it home. But through those prayers, I still had the thoughts. I still had the anxiety. And I still had this crippling fear, especially as things kept getting worse. Things just kept, it seemed to me, to just keep getting worse and worse and worse, and more dangerous and more dangerous. So Sunday, May 23rd, in 3 p.m, they decided that we could not wait to induce any longer. We couldn't wait for a natural birth, and that she had to be taken by emergency C-section, which was one of the most terrifying things in my life, because I couldn't be on an epidural or anything like that. I had, because of my health condition, I had to be completely knocked out. And so my baby was born, and I didn't even get to see her for a day and a half. And even after the birth, I was very seriously ill, and I was on medication that made me very, very ill in different ways. I was on a magnesium drip, which, for anybody that's in the medical field knows, stops seizures, but the side effects are horrible. I had mental fog that was even worse than before, and I was a fall risk, meaning I couldn't even get up to go to the restroom on my own. I was completely bedridden for several days, but that also meant that I couldn't even go to the NICU to see my daughter. And when I did get to go, I was so weak I couldn't hold her. So throughout all of this, I had, like I said, just completely crippling fear and anxiety about every single thing that was happening. Before the birth, it was about the birth and about if she was going to be okay. And then after the birth, it was about if I was actually going to get better, because my physical state was getting worse. Which, of course, eventually it did get better, and I'm out of the hospital, of course. But at the time, it just seemed like every single stage was scarier and scarier. But I want to come to you today throughout all of this, and coming out from the other side, which my daughter's still in the NICU, so I still have things to worry about. I still have things to possibly be anxious about, and I don't want to stay in that mindset, but it's really hard to get out of it, and it's hard to let go of those fears and let go of those things, even when things are getting better, because it's been so bad before, and I totally understand that. And if anybody's going through anything like this with their health or financial or anything like that, you understand what I mean. But this Sunday, we were able to have a very beautiful worship service, and I was able to be back in church, which, if you know me, you know I miss church when I can't be there, and me being in the hospital and me being scared, me not being in church didn't help anything. So we had this wonderful worship service. Pastor didn't even get to preach. And the prayer service was just absolutely amazing, and I was able to let go a lot of my anxieties at the altar. And so I wanted just to come to you with a lighter air, and after feeling so much better, and just remind you of a scripture that really personifies exactly what we need to remember when we're in these times of trouble. So Psalm 94:19 says, "When anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought joy to my soul." I understand that it's hard to feel joy when you're in the middle of a storm, and I understand that it's hard to have peace. And believe me, I don't feel peaceful all the time. I don't have joy every single moment of the day. There are still times when I'm in the NICU and I start crying because I'm missing out on these first moments with my baby. But she's alive, and I'm so thankful that she's thriving and that she's getting bigger, and she will be able to come home soon. And I'm so thankful that I'm alive. I am so thankful for so many things. But I still struggle with mourning and grieving the what could have been. You know, I'm missing out on the first moments with my baby. I'm missing out on these quality bonding times with her. But that's okay. I will have time with her later when she's home. I just have to deal with this situation that I have now. And I just have to keep reminding myself that the Lord is with her and the Lord is with me throughout all of it. And even though this time is really hard, it's going to get better. So just remember, no matter what you're going through right now, it will get better. The Lord will comfort you in all of your circumstances, no matter what. All right, thank you guys, and have a great day.